No.
Welcome to the My Haunt Life podcast.
Hello and welcome to the My Haunt Life podcast. I'm Mike.
And I'm Russell.
And Russell, I think we should just get this one out of the way.
You mean dive right in?
Yeah.
You mean...
The lust experience.
Lust. Oh, yeah.
You do mean the lust experience. I was excited.
For that sound?
So, for lust in general.
Okay.
So, but wait, you're talking about something different. Lust experience. Okay, all right.
Way to make this awkward.
It's a gift. So, right after we recorded last podcast, Mike, stuff happened.
Yeah, and exciting stuff happened. And if I say it's exciting stuff, you know that a lot of people probably hate it.
You were excited.
I was super excited. This happened to do with someone that you started to care about.
Yeah, Joyce. Joyce, who came to my home. Joyce, who refused to accept any water or beverages from me. Joyce, who brought a few friends over. Joyce, who actually seemed to give a damn about me. Yeah, she got a visit from Mason.
And Michelle.
And Michelle.
From the OSDM.
Yeah, the whole OSDM thing. There was a Periscope that went out, and if you go to the Lust Experience forums, you can read much more detailed information than we're going to give here. But it was a couple of different Periscopes. Joyce, we thought, was going to go live, and actually, wait, I think this was Facebook Live.
You're right.
Yeah, it was Facebook
Periscope.
Live. It wasn't Periscope's. My mistake. We thought she was going to answer some questions that the community had about the OSDM, her involvement, powers that be, and instead she got interrupted by a visit from Mason, and Michelle was carrying a baseball bat.
And Mason was wearing Argyle and a half skull mask. So already it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, your fondness goes to that.
Of course it does.
So, yeah. So the visit basically went down where the Facebook Live video, they seemed to be intimidating Joyce. She didn't answer any questions, which is kind of standard for the Lust Experience. Nobody answers any questions ever. Well,
at the end of that video, Mason asked for someone from the community.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Right.
Like, who can be at this street corner in a half hour or an hour or something? And Kristen was able to go. And then the next Facebook Live video was of her getting in a car and then driving.
Yeah, and then they led her to an apartment.
Yeah, and it happened to be the same apartment that we saw Michelle, Mason, and Joyce at earlier.
Except now Joyce was not looking as well as she had in the previous Facebook Live.
Yeah, she was bloody and beaten and hanging on to her life by a thread.
It looked like she had been hit multiple times in the head with a baseball bat. It was an extremely disturbing image.
Disturbing or amazing?
It was disturbing.
It was awesome.
You're so weird.
No way. Like that, and I mean, the fact that the baseball bat was all bloody as well. And
I know, but it's just like, I mean, this is literally, it's like I haven't had a lot of connection, and it just to see that happen to the one character that I had finally connected with.
Right.
I was like, oh, come on. Really? It was disturbing for me, definitely. Because, Joyce had left me with kind of a cliffhanger after she visited my apartment, that she was going to get back in touch with me and something was going to happen and she's going to have a task for me. So, and I wasn't thinking about that at the time, but that's part of the fallout from
oh
all
my
of this.
God, I just thought of something right now.
What?
What did Otis say to you?
He said that when the darkness comes, it brings a whole heap of trouble with it.
No, but the pain brings the darkness, right?
Right.
So seeing Joyce like this is painful for you.
Yeah, it was.
Now there's going to be a whole crapload of darkness coming for you.
At this point, I could use it. Really. Things have been getting darker moment by moment in my life. So yeah, bring the darkness. Wait, didn't you say that the last podcast? Okay, I'm finally with you. I'm finally with you, Mike. Bring the darkness. That ended. And Kristen was there. This was the apartment she was in, and she witnessed Joyce struggling for her life. She witnessed the callous behavior of Michelle and Mason, and that was the end of the Facebook Live.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, she saw that up close and personal. And,
Yeah.
you know, I can only imagine what that was like.
I'm sure it was disturbing.
I have a number for a therapist if you need it. So then the Mason hate started. I mean, there was already Mason hate, but
Oh, yeah.
there was, I mean, so much more because people like Joyce and people didn't like the fact that she got beat with a baseball bat. Even though we didn't know at the time Mason
Right.
for sure did it, because
That's true.
we saw Michelle holding it in the beginning and then Mason was holding it at the end and, you know, whatever. But yeah, a whole slew of hate happened.
Well, here's the thing. I actually was not on board for the Mason hate beforehand. I just was on board for the Mason mistrust,
Right.
because that was the thing, that he was just acting cagey. So the Mason hate, I sort of understand, but even then, like I was on board with you. I think you're in the camp of we don't know who really did this and we don't know what happened.
Right.
So I wasn't willing to just condemn Mason. I was willing to condemn someone. I mean, someone needs to be held responsible for what happened. But yeah, the Mason hate I thought came too fast, if that makes any sense.
Came too fast.
Would you get...
Lust.
So if you're insinuating Mason comes too fast, that's on you. So
He does not come too fast on me.
you're the one who brought it up.
Anyways. Yeah, but you're the one who got it up. We can just keep going.
Wow.
It's early.
I can never win these because you're so much better at this kind of thing than I am.
That's what she said. Okay, we'll stop.
Where were we?
We were talking about the Mason hate.
Okay, continue. Did you hate Mason?
No, because I've always been a fan of villains, and especially one like this. Like, a lot of people made references and comparisons to him being like the Joker.
Yeah.
You've seen my house.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen all the Joker stuff.
You're a fan of the Joker.
So to bring a little anarchy and chaos into this world, I'm so happy and I welcome it, because for so long it's just kind of been like, you know, we've had just kind of tidbits of weird cult stuff
And corporate intrigue.
and occult stuff.
Love triangles and
Yeah, and the seminar. So to finally bring it back to like a dark and, you know, murderous place, like, that's awesome to me.
Story-wise, I see your point. I just really wish it had happened to another character.
Yeah, of course. Life sucks sometimes.
Oh, really? Yeah, I've noticed that recently. Okay, so following up on that.
Well, because of that, and because of all the Mason hate, I sent him an email. And because he reached out to me early on. I was one of the people that got the, hey, I'm Mason from Briarberg. I want to talk about ethics.
Which I didn't get until after Joy spoke to me, but I got it much later.
Right. And so we had a little dialogue going, a little bit of a history. So I didn't feel weird emailing him. So I emailed him basically saying, I like your style. You know, I'm a fan of baseball bats as well. A lot of people seem to not trust you and not like you. I'm offering, you know, I've offered help. I've been one of the only people that have given you the benefit of the doubt. You like pop music like Katy Perry and, you know, Taylor Swift. I like K-pop. You know, I think we have a lot in common. We should talk. And after I sent that email, he had called me.
Yes.
And it was like a 5-minute conversation about K-pop.
About K-pop.
About K-pop. And it was incredible.
Okay, for listeners of the podcast, Mike has his goofy grin on right now.
Hell yeah, I do. Because here's the thing. Like, he knew his stuff.
Yeah, you
Like-
told me that. You told me about this after it happened, and that's the thing that surprised me.
Right.
When you said that he actually knew K-pop, like, that's pretty damn cool.
Because I brought up, I forget how it got brought up, but I brought up Brown Eyed Girls Abracadabra. And,
Yeah.
and of course I brought you into it. I was like, yeah, my friend Russell you know, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like he's like, that's the song that got him into it. And like, he's in love with Gain and like all,
I'm sorry, wait.
Whoa.
Was that out loud?
Lust.
No, seriously, folks, if you have not seen Brown Eyed Girls Abracadabra music video, and look up the story video, the long form, not the performance video, the story video. It's one of the sexiest things you'll ever watch.
And it got awkward.
I'm
again.
sorry, wait. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Anyways.
Am I blushing?
Wow. Yep. Okay.
I'm sorry, you, Mason, K-pop, go, please.
Yeah. No, well, we'll just keep this a silence and awkward and you laughing. Yeah, keep going.
Stop.
Okay, anyways. But yeah, like he actually, you know, and he talked about subunits. Like he was like, oh, orange caramel. Oh, but what about after school? And, you know, stuff like that.
You didn't tell me that he got that detailed.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah.
God, you were, I'm sure you were just giddy with delight.
Oh my God, yeah. Because then he started asking me about like some of my favorite groups, and I just went off, and he's like, well, what are your favorite songs? And it's like, well, who's your favorite Girls' Generation member? And he started naming names.
What?
Yeah, and I was like, no, mine's Sunny. And he's like, oh, okay. You know, but it was just like, he was like, what about Yuri? You're Soo Young. And, you know, and it's like, oh my God, like, you know names.
That's hysterical.
Yeah, so it was really cool. So not only does it seem Mason is a fan of American pop music, he's a fan of K-pop as well.
Oh.
And he's all right in my book, despite baseball bats.
Despite baseball bats. Okay.
A couple days after that, a few people got an email from Jamie from the Briarberg Foundation. The Briarberg Foundation is the same organization that Mason is a part of. And when he emailed us originally, he said he was Mason from the Briarberg Foundation. So Jamie is a board member from the foundation. Mm-hmm. And she reached out to a few of us, and each email was a little bit different. For example, mine was, we heard about some things that happened in Tension and Ascension. We want to talk to you about it. Each email was a little bit specific for what they did. I think Lauren, they mentioned something about BOS and that organization. But in the email, Jamie said that she would be in town because it was a she. We weren't sure. It's one of those unisex names. Since she would be in town that weekend, if we would be able to meet with her. And she mentioned Thursday at 8:00 is a time that would work for her. I emailed back saying, yeah, that was fine. And each person that got an email, we realized like, oh, wait a minute, they're all saying Thursday at 8 each email. So right. At that point, it's like, okay, this is going to be a group thing. And we all got it nerdy and started theorizing about everything. And then finally Thursday came, and we all met up a little bit beforehand at the Pig and Whistle. And because we were given an area to be in, and that an address would come at a certain time. And when we got the address, we realized it was a little bit down the road. So we all started walking because it was close enough to walk.
Oh, cool.
Except for Buzz, because he's a special flower who is like, I ain't walking, I'm taking an Uber. It's like, okay. Love you, Buzz. And we got the address, and we went to the address, and we go inside, and we are greeted by, I guess you could call him a security guard. He was just a guy in a suit staring each one of us down, looking us up and down, making sure we're not doing anything we're not supposed to. We're led to the main room, and we finally meet Jamie. She comes down the stairs, and she goes to almost all of us and calls us by name, even though she called me Buzz. And I'm like, no, I'm Mike. And she's like, okay, hi, Mike. And then she went to like all the different people, and she told us to gather around the table. And
by the way, describe Jamie. What is she like?
She's looks like a businesswoman, blonde hair, kind of tall. You know, she was wearing a skirt and a button-up shirt, very professional looking.
Office wear? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I guess for most people.
I was going to say this was probably a business meeting to her.
Yeah. I've never been in an environment where people dress like that at work.
Okay.
So
I don't dress like that, but I get called into meetings where people dress like that.
Right.
We're seen as the creative types.
Oh boy. So after the introductions, there was a pounding at the door. Not a knock, a pounding. And everyone kind of looked at each other and it was like, oh my God, what's about to happen? Who's here? Who's here? And in walks someone that you and I know pretty well. Mm-hmm. Some call him Kiro, some call him 111 Error, some call him Morgan. Well, most people call him Morgan. Morgan showed up. And I wasn't surprised because earlier that day we received a waiver. But the waiver's email was for the Midnight Commission.
Right, which was Morgan mainly.
Yeah, and so when wasn't sure if that was an out-of-game, like, just kind of screw up, like we're using the same account, we don't want to make another one, because I don't know if you have to pay for that service or anything. Right. So, especially if investors are involved, they want to cut corners. So I brought that up. And there's all these theories about everything, like is BOS and Briarberg together and, all of that stuff. So when Morgan showed up, I kind of had this smirk, like when I was looking at him, I was like, I knew it. I knew you were going to be here. But it was still kind of like, whoa, what the hell is he doing here? So that opened up a whole bunch of more questions. Morgan and Mason definitely knew each other. Mason was Jack, who helped out at the Midnight Commission event, which I didn't go to.
Yeah, neither did I.
And but the way they acted towards one another, it was almost like it was definitely Morgan seemed to hate him, but was forced to be around him and forced to work with him. It was very like Morgan was like swearing at him and throwing pillows at him and like kind of like taunting him, like poking the badger.
Like competitive? Combative?
No, like it was more like do something. Touch me, hit me, so I can do something back to you.
Oh.
But he couldn't do anything. It just seemed like they were forced to be coexisting.
So they just hung out while all this was going down?
Yeah, so Morgan was swearing at him and trying to pick a fight, and Mason was just smirking and playing with his Rubik's Cube.
Okay.
Which is why I love Mason. This dude is like talking a whole bunch of crap towards him, and he's just like, I don't care what you have to say. I'm just doing my thing.
Okay.
So that was weird. And then after that, Jamie asked us to come to the table, and the security guy goes and grabs a big cardboard box, and she asks us to reach inside and grab a pear, and each of us grabs a fruit inside. Most of us grab an apple, and I think it was Melissa actually grabbed a pear, and she told a story about truth and how to Melissa the statement she said that it's a box full of pears is true because she did grab a pear, even though we all grabbed apples. And to us, it wasn't true. So she made a story about how people can see truths differently and they can believe truths, even though it may not look like truths to other people.
Also, and that you can convince yourself that something is true based on one fact rather than the whole picture.
Right.
Which I think correlates completely to what was going on with Mason at the time.
Mm-hmm. Except Buzz and I, of course, we were not jerks, but you know how specific I can get. It's like, because she's like, see, to her, the truth is it is a box of pears. And it's like, well, no, it was only one pear. That's not truth. but the way it was worded, yes. It was like to the rest of us is like, no, that's not true. Because it was one pear.
Right.
Not pears, but whatever.
Okay.
Stickler. What can I say? After that, she had us go upstairs. And when we went upstairs, that was when, in my mind, I said, oh, fuck. Because we go upstairs, I see Stephanie, I see Miles, Mary Lynn, there was another processing lady. They were all just there, standing there. And it's just like, what the hell is going on?
So these are all characters that we encountered at Ascension.
They're not characters, Russell.
These are all people who we met at Ascension.
Yes.
At the end of the tension experience.
Yeah. And it was really weird because Larry was there, and obviously he and Stephanie are very close because of dark arts.
Yeah, they've worked together on a couple different projects.
Yeah, so we knew, like, it's like, oh, this is weird, but seeing Stephanie there, like, really hit me as well. Because of dark arts, like, her and I have gotten, like, closer and stuff, and she's an amazing person. Like, we become friends because of that. And when I looked at her, she did this weird, like, you know, when you look at someone and you say, like, without saying words, you say, like, I'm sorry, and it's like you wrinkle your, like, forehead, and it's like it's like one of these, like,
right.
I'm giving Russell a weird look right now. But, like, she did that when we, like, made eye contact, and it was just like, oh, what are we getting ourselves into?
Wow. Okay.
And then once we were all upstairs, Miles started talking, and he said, Mike Fontaine and Melissa Kramer, come with me. So he took us outside, and then each other person grabbed a couple people from our group. And what Miles told us was, it was a story about how he became involved in Ascension, and how he needed money, and even though theater didn't really pay well, he just needed more opportunities because he wasn't getting any acting gigs in commercials or movies or TV or anything. And when he went to the audition, they didn't give him
sides.
They didn't give him sides.
Which, for those who don't know, sides are usually a couple pages out of a script that an actor reads to audition for a part.
Mm-hmm. And he was saying how after he did the audition, this man came out to him with this, you know, shit-eating grin and a stack of papers, and was like, you start tomorrow. And Miles said that the whole environment felt oppressive. And the more because when they asked him to talk, asked him to talk about some of the, like, the negative things in his life. And he said the more negative he got, the more brighter the room seemed to get.
Wow.
Which, yeah, it was, and then at the end, the guy told him, like, you got the part, like, you start tomorrow. And he's like, and Miles told him, oh, no, thank you. And I guess the guy looked at him again, was like, no, you start tomorrow, and gave him a stack of papers. And when Miles looked at the papers, it was all information about him, his family, everything he's ever done. Just, like, basically a bunch of surveillance and information nobody should have except Miles and or his family.
Right.
And the man told him, like, look, this is your copy. We have our copy, and we'll keep it safe until it can't be held safe anymore.
Wow.
So it was basically a blackmail for Miles to get into Ascension. And as he was telling this story, it looked like he was about to have a panic attack and was getting really anxious. He grabbed his like, messenger bag, like, and started just holding it and, like, just squeezing it, like, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here. And then as he was leaving, he looked at Melissa and I, he's like, just kill me, and walked away.
Wow.
And, like, Melissa and I just looked at each other like, what the hell just happened? And each group got a story of their own. And those are all on the forums, and it's pretty incredible. And thank you, Lauren, for typing all of that out. Afterwards, we all went to a bar to decompress, and she typed it out. It probably took, like, an hour, like,
I'm sure,
to like, hear all of our stories and do that. So thank you so much. And yeah, it's
interesting because I encountered Miles after Ascension. There was a time when Mike and I, we got called back, several of us got called back to do an interview about participating in the Tension Experience. And I met Miles that day, was the day that I actually finally got a chance to really speak to him. Because inside Ascension, I only interacted with him for a few moments.
Same with me.
And this my second time through, he recognized me, but I really didn't have an interaction with him because I repeated basically the same path. So I met him briefly and then moved forward. And then at the end of my second time through Ascension, I was sort of off to the side, and I didn't even want to be in the picture my second time through Ascension. So I was trying to avoid everything and avoid the crowd, and like I didn't want to be in the picture because they were taking group pictures at that point. And he came and he got me, and he insisted. He said, "No, Russell, you need to be." And it's funny because if you look at the picture of my second time through Ascension, I'm all the way on one side because literally Miles was pulling me into the corner of the picture.
Right.
You know, and so it just like my impression of him is someone who is very caring and inclusive.
Right. Which is why it was so tough to hear.
I was going to say hear him that distressed is disturbing.
Yeah, because Miles was he's one of the first people, if not the first person you meet, like outside of handlers.
Yeah.
And within Ascension, I mean. And he was always so caring and so, you know, just there to do his job. And, you know, to hear this,
he keeps a messy office though.
But it's like,
but he knew where everything was, which is kind of my style of filing as well.
Yeah.
So,
but it's like, who was the man in the suit? Like, was that OSDM? Is he part of Briarberg? Like, who was that guy? Is he an investor? Like, that's the thing. We don't know.
No, I don't think he'd be an investor if he was waiting out there to greet you.
Well, I mean, they could send anyone they want to talk to him.
That's true.
One thing that was mentioned to Larry from Stephanie, it's very important about Briarberg, is she told him they get people out of cults. So that started a whole theory about is Briarberg a deprogramming organization, or is Briarberg another cult just taking people back in under the guise of we're trying to get you out, but really they're getting you back in. So I think that was a really important reveal as well. I mean, every story was important, you know,
Right.
once you put them all together, but just who is Briarberg is a huge question at this point too.
Which the question that came up for me is if that's what they do, and even though Joyce is not Briarberg necessarily, even though supposedly they seem connected to the OSDM, like it seems interesting that they were concerned about me being disconnected if that's their agenda over at Briarberg.
Right.
Like there's just this weird thing about like, okay, if someone isn't engaged, they don't serve our purpose, and if they are engaged, we have a purpose. So I just flashed back to some of the conversation that Joyce and I had here in my
But
home.
Joyce is OSDM.
Yeah, I know that. But the fact that
So they want your emotional data.
I think that's it. But I was all Anak last year. So I did the cult thing.
You're saying that like in past tense. I don't understand.
I'm still Team Anak, really.
Glory be.
Glory be.
So I just want to talk about something kind of like in general, like all throughout Tension and all throughout Lust so far, it's been mainly an LA centric thing.
Right.
You know, in Tension, they did do some things for people that were out of town, like Mumu got the dead drop in Kansas City with the letter. There was that, there was a girl in Atlanta where someone came up with like the sandbag, and you know, so things have happened to other people.
Mm-hmm. And people have gotten phone calls around the world.
Yeah. But what happened like last week kind of blew my mind.
It was pretty intense sounding, definitely.
So Megan, who's Corifilla on the forums, which she was there throughout Tension as well. She lives in Minnesota, and at first, like Mason started calling her. Like she got a call from Mason one night, and then the next 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 night. So I think it was something like 10 days in a row or something.
Right.
Mason would call her, and I believe he said something like, "Oh, I'll see you soon," which in this universe, it doesn't really click because you're like, yeah, right. I'm in Minnesota, you know, blah, blah, blah. Well, Mason did a Facebook Live video that called out Megan and said, "You have 5 minutes to get home." And when he turned the camera, it showed Megan's house.
Right.
He was in Minnesota, waiting for her. The night before, he had met with Chelsea, and showed Chelsea Joyce's dead body in the trunk of his car.
Right.
Which, I mean, like, this is everything that I wanted in Tension, you know? Like, because, like, how many times last year were we like, I want it darker, I want murder, I want this, I want that. And we see a baseball bat beaten woman, and then we see someone gets to see that woman in the trunk of a car that actually smells bad.
Yeah, that broke my heart when I read that. It did.
Yeah. And then we have that person the next night being in Minnesota.
Yeah, pretty intense.
Like, dude, this is real now. Like, this, it's not a game anymore.
You have to give them credit for the ambition of what they're trying to do and how they're trying to incorporate everyone's personal stuff. It's like, you have to give them credit for, like,
yeah.
This is like, how far will this go? How far will this reach? It's utterly fascinating.
The ante is so upped now. Like, it's ridiculous. So Mason is at Megan's house, and we find out that Megan goes home and meets with him, and then we don't hear from Megan. Mm-hmm. And so everyone is like, oh my God, is she okay? And there's a couple people she reached out to, well, supposedly reached out to. Well, we just don't know. Like, phone calls came to certain people from her number. I think she called Michelle and said, don't ever call me again.
Right.
I think she called Brian, and I don't remember if he got a message or anything, or if it was just a call and just background noise.
Well, I sent her a message as it started to unfold, because I knew it would be intense for her after the series of phone calls and everything else. So I just sent a message that said, like, hey, you're probably busy right now, but just want to let you know, thinking about you. And she never responded to me until much, much later.
Right. But then I got a call from her number.
Right.
And it was such bad timing because I was on a conference call at work.
Oh my gosh. See, yeah.
But because it was from her, and because what happened the night before with Mason showing up, was like,
right.
I need to take this. Like, so
yeah.
I hung up on the conference call and took her call. Like, whatever. It's my last 2 weeks of work anyway. What are they going to do? I called back afterwards. It's fine. It wasn't important. But I got a call, and it sounded like you would, like, if you were in a car, you like when you pick up a phone and someone's in a car, you hear like
you hear the, yeah.
Like that. And I heard a little kid talking, and it was hard to hear, because you know how when little kids talk, it's like, you can't always understand them, because it's like,
right.
And then I went to thinking about there was something.
So it was, because that was actually the next question I was going to ask you is, how young did you think this kid was? Was it forming complete sentences? Was it?
Wow.
A little glimpse of my relationship with children. I am not a father.
It was very, like, constant. It wasn't they were complete sentences, as there was complete ideas, I think.
Oh, okay. So it was like one of those, one of the talkative phases that they go through. Yeah. Okay, cool.
But one thing I did understand was, and the car smelled funny.
Wow.
So it was Mason's kid talking about their dead mother.
Well, being in the car and smelling the dead body of Joyce in the trunk.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing to put together.
Yeah. And, like, that messed with me, man. Like,
well, it's disturbing.
Yeah. Like, as soon as you bring little kids, and, little kids are creepy anyway. But, like, no, I mean, when it comes to, like,
okay.
horror movies and stuff. But when you hear a little kid talking about, like, their dead mother, and not even realizing they're talking about their dead mother.
Right.
Like that, oh man, that messes with you.
Yeah, because you just mentioned the reveal that.
Yeah. Joyce and Mason did a little bit of lusting.
Yeah, and apparently this may be a child from Joyce and Mason, is the indication that we've been given so far.
Yeah. So
if you back up, that means Mason apparently killed the mother of his own child.
Right.
Why? What's the motivation?
Exactly. So speaking of why, I had made a thread about that.
Yes.
You know, not just trying to ask that question. I probably worded it poorly because people think I'm like pro rapists and stuff now, like for whatever reason. It's like, come on, guys.
I'm sorry. Look, that was a completely ridiculous reaction to your post. Sorry if I'm stepping on any toes. There's a couple of things on the forums recently. One is like you just described a situation where you were on a work call, you made a choice. You know, it's like when Mason called me, he called me in the middle of an afternoon of a business day as I was walking into a business meeting. And I might have gotten flack online about being slow to post. Like, deal with it, people. You know, and if you're upset with Megan that she didn't get to the forums fast enough, screw you. Deal with it. Like, people have lives. People are going to take their time. It may take time to process. For me personally, Mike, if I have an interaction, I usually write it up and then proofread it first and then do a quick editing job. It's what I do for a living, okay?
Right.
So it takes me a little while to get something up to the forum.
It takes you a while to get something up.
Stop it. Jeez. So that, and then when I read people taking something that you meant obviously out of context, I was like, oh, come on.
But we skipped something because the whole reason for that post was based on something that happened the night before that involved you and Melissa.
So yes, and Melissa. Actually, it was primarily Melissa. So Melissa had called out a couple of people. Pardon me, I worded that poorly. Sent a message to a few people and said, hey, look, I've got some time and I've got some thoughts, and do you want to get together and talk? And let's do something, because I'm worried. You know, I have opinions on Joyce. I have opinions on Mason's behavior. I have opinions on, like, what is the OSDM and all of these questions. And so it just so happened that no one was able to quite meet her. And I was, oddly enough, at 10 o'clock at night, finishing up a business thing. So I responded late to her message and said, hey, if you're still in the area, I can meet you. So we met, and she very cleverly made wanted posters for Michelle and Mason based on their recent behavior. Which, by the way, I don't know if you've looked at that closely of Michelle's wanted poster that Melissa created. Did you notice that one of her offenses was?
No, what?
Book ruiner. Melissa, I love you. That refers to her destroying the Book of Anak, which Mike and I are drawn to the Book of Anak. So she had made these wanted posters, and so kind of spur of the moment, she had the idea of possibly doing, posting them in the North Hollywood area, perhaps outside the apartment of a current leader of the BOS faction. Just saying that might happen, or maybe it did happen. So, love you, Morgan. So she posted them, and we did a little Periscope, and it was, oddly enough, her phone was dying. So I did the Periscope on my phone, but believe me, people, it was primarily Melissa's doing that all went down and that happened. She deserves credit for those wanted posters. She really deserves credit for those. But I stuck my head in at the beginning of the Periscope and just said, it's like, there's all these questions about, how can you trust Mason? I still trust Mason, even though he might have killed somebody. I don't trust Michelle, but I can trust Mason. I can trust Michelle, or I can trust Mason, but not Michelle because of her past and all of this. And so I just said, look, and the reason I went on my rant, 180 seconds ago, is like, with all of the sniping that's going on Slack and in the forums about, you're not fast enough, you're not posting the way I want you to post. Like, guys, if we're going to survive this story at all, we're going to have to rely on each other at some point. Maybe not the whole community. Maybe we just have to rely on one friend or two friends. But you're going to need somebody. So if this whole attitude of burn everything down, including the relationships you have in the community, which some people seem to be taking that stand, screw everyone, like, that's not going to pay off well for some people, I think. And that was why I stuck my head in the beginning of the Periscope and, like, I stand with my friends.
Yeah.
And I wrote on the forums, about that. It was like, hey, it's like, we got each other. That's about it. because obviously we can't trust anyone else.
Or each other.
I trust you for the most part.
Sorry.
Wait, are you apologizing in advance or something?
Yeah, probably.
God damn.
Something will happen.
So, but anyway, that was like, and trust me, and then after that, you know, Michelle, Michelle, I have Michelle on the brain. So, Melissa made a point about, you know, all the acronyms that are, you know, OSDM, whatever Joyce said that her division was, the Briarberg Foundation. It's like, come on, people. It's like, let's get real.
But Briarberg doesn't use...
No, there's no acronym for Briarberg. So
so that means they're legit.
So, but Melissa, I just think, wanted to make the point of, this is getting so ridiculous with literally lives being taken. And are there ramifications for the OSDM? And are there ramifications for the powers that be there? And I think Melissa was just trying to make the point of, there will be.
Something Melissa said in that Periscope resonated with me, which made me make that thread that I just referenced. And she said that nobody deserves to get a beating like that. And me, being me, said, well, I don't agree with that, because there are people that deserve beatings like that, you know, and that's my personal opinion, you know. And I mentioned like things like rapists or, you know, child molesters, stuff like that. Like,
yeah, actually, you didn't say child molester, and somebody called you out on that, which
like,
technically
come on.
Oh, no,
like,
it's a valid point. It's a valid point. So, which, you know, they are in the right. That I think you used the word pedophile. Yeah, which is not a child molester. It's a very different thing.
Yeah, they're one and the same to me.
They're not one and the same.
I know that, but they're one and the same. Like when I think pedophile, I think child molester, because that's how they're always portrayed in like movies and stuff.
Ah, okay. Now I understand where you're coming from. Okay, that's no, because one is like a predilection or a
yeah, just an attraction.
Yeah, exactly, which they don't have to act upon.
Right. So those are my examples, and I brought that up, and it wasn't to victim blame Joyce. It wasn't to do anything like that. It was to make a point that in my mind, people deserve beatings. So the whole point of that post was, why are we not asking questions? Like, what did Joyce do to do this? Like, is Mason a true psychopath and murderer where he just did it for the fun of it? Or did Joyce do something? Was Joyce the reason their daughter was stuck in OSDM for so long? Did Joyce, you know, we saw sex rituals before. Yeah. Did Joyce have people diddle their daughter? You know, like stuff like that. Yeah, you deserve it. You deserve that beating. You know, if it was just I don't like her, then no, she didn't deserve it at all. But, you know, and then there was, you know, people were like, you know, I believe in the justice system and, you know, stuff like that, which is fine. You guys are all entitled to your opinions and I have mine, but there's no justice. There's just us.
Well, here's
the thing. Like I grew up with like street justice.
Right.
You know, like being in like the punk and hardcore scene, it's like, that's what you do. You don't go to the cops if someone hits your friend. You go and you beat them down. You know, that's my past. Like, that's what I know. That's what I grew up with. So, you know, and I said, like, if anyone messes with my friends, like, they're going to get beaten, you know, like someone messes with my mom, someone messes with, like, if someone messes with you, like, yeah, they're dead.
Wow.
So.
Well, thank you for that, I think. But here's the thing. I'm Team Joyce. Okay. It's like, you know, Joyce expressed concern and was trying to get me involved in a way that nobody else seemed to be able to do. So, and yet I agree with you. It's like, I think everything that you said, we need to ask these questions. What was Joyce's agenda? What did she do? What has she done in the past? How good a mother was she? Was she present? Was she not present? All those questions need to be asked.
Right.
And they're very valid questions, even though I am, you know, I would be considered Team Joyce.
Right.
Here's the thing. It's the same attitude of, I hate Mason now. How dare he? People are doing the same thing now. Some people are doing the same thing with Joyce. And it's the same attitude. It's this weird this weird rush to judgment that it's like, oh, I see this black and white. I know exactly what's going on.
Right. And it's not black and white.
So, and for you to say, hey guys, there's gray here, and to catch the blowback you did, it goes back to what I was ranting about 7 minutes ago. So,
so yeah, that's where we're at.
So
at this point.
So you let your justice flag fly. Wait, let your justice flag fly, dude.
Okay.
Even if I disagree with you, I got your back on that one.
Thanks.
And I only mildly disagree with you, really.
So that's pretty much everything going on in Lustland right now. Tickets were supposed to go on sale for the mid-season event, but they got pushed back. So keep an eye out. There's still a chance to get tickets.
And I guess the mid-season event is going to be for 1 week in November.
Yes.
Which, God, I hope the dates come out soon because...
But can I just say how smart that is?
What do you mean?
They're not... Okay.
Oh, not during...
Haunt season is starting. Tickets are going on sale before most haunts go on sale, and the event is going to be after haunt season.
Right.
That's a genius.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. LA. So, but my November is filling up really fast. And I'm traveling in November. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, what dates? It's like, I need dates. I'm buying plane tickets.
Soon.
So yeah, exactly. The infamous soon. We'll see tickets soon.
And for more information on the Lust Experience, you can find them on the web at thelustexperience.com, on Facebook, The Lust Experience, on Instagram, The Lust Experience, and on Twitter, Lust_experience.
Okay, Mike.
Yes.
I work in the film business, right?
I do.
Okay, I work in animation, so this really doesn't affect me that much, but Hollywood theaters in general, movies, this has been a sucky year, apparently.
Yeah.
Box office tickets are almost 20% down in sales. It's major stories, especially here in Los Angeles and Hollywood, where everything seems to be centered on the industry in some way. So there was a beacon of hope. There was this shining moment where everybody looked at one freaking movie to see if it could save the entire year.
Episode 8?
No. Not Star Wars related in any way.
Oh, okay.
The movie It got so much buzz, so much hype. We've touched on it on a couple of podcasts because we did the VR experience at one of the horror conventions. And the movie got so much promotion. And
the marketing is incredible.
Yeah, the marketing push is unique. Warner Brothers went above and beyond, the VR experience, which did major cities, I guess, around the country. We're going to talk about a live experience we did. The marketing is everywhere for this thing. And when it opened, I don't know if it will save the year. I think that's too much pressure to put on one movie to save the year for Hollywood. I think that's a ridiculous expectation for any film. But it's nice to see that when it opened, I think it opened with 123 million at the box office. As we're recording this, box office, Chris, we're recording this on a weekend, so I'm sure the box office tally is rising as we speak. It's over 215 million right now. So they have a hit on their hands. The sequel is already in the works. So I find it kind of refreshing that box office, that Hollywood is looking at horror going, there's hope here. And some people are criticizing the movie for being too mainstream, for being too slick, for being,
and it's not really horror. And
yeah, that's another conversation. You're right. It's not really horror. Well, in my opinion, it's horror.
Have you seen it?
Yes, I have. So I enjoyed it. I do have some... I do have a few issues with it, but they're more tone. And I will say this, and I think this is possibly why the film is having that conversation around about it's not a horror film, because it's actually not directed like a traditional horror film. They don't set up shots like horror movies would. They set up shots as if it's a straight drama, and the horror comes from the situation. So, I gave this example to someone who's rather than Pennywise the clown creeping up on someone, they will cut to something and Pennywise will peek out from around it.
Okay.
It's that's the difference between building suspense in a horror movie and doing a jump scare. So it's a different style and a different tone. And they do some wonderful moments where, things are moving in the back of the frame behind a character and they're not aware of it. It certainly has that moment. But I think that's one of the reasons people are reacting this doesn't feel like a traditional horror film, because it's not made like a traditional horror film, but it has horror elements. So in my opinion, yes, it's a freaking horror movie. It's like, deal with it. Just because it doesn't feel like you would expect it to feel, it doesn't mean it's not a horror film. So I'm just really happy that we have a huge horror box office hit. Because, it's that whole thing of rising tides floats all boats. This can only serve other horror films well.
But they all float down.
Yes. Wow. Thank you for saying that. I walked right into that and didn't even see it. I just find I find hope in the fact that, Hollywood once again has an example of, look, you can do creepy stuff. You can do scary stuff that involves children. Because there's been,
Sorry. After that lust conversation, it's like...
because, you look at like movies that have been lost to some degree, like Trick or Treat in the last few years, which didn't get the release it deserved and the attention it deserved from the studio, partially because it deals with horrible things happening to children. So I think whether you like it or whether you don't, and I've heard a lot of people who actually, deep core horror fans who didn't care for it that much, I think it's a good thing for horror in general. So that's my opinion. But you and I, because we have been doing horror stuff recently, we've sort of been inundated with it stuff.
Yeah.
So...
And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, some of it's very, very cool.
Yeah, we got some mail.
Yeah, we did.
The new box of Dread came, and the first thing I noticed when I picked this up is, whoa, there's some weight to this.
Yes.
And
thanks to one object in particular.
And when I opened it up, it was like, oh wow, there's some It stuff in here.
Yeah, it's a box of Dread of It stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean everything in it was It except for a pin.
Yeah, which by the way, one of the things that are really cool that they did is they actually gave you sort of a mechanism, a little like viewer that you could unfold and wrap around your phone, and you could download the VR experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a Google Cardboard thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Google Cardboard, and I thought that was, again, it's Warner Brothers, like, that VR experience got a lot of press among horror fan sites and just movie fan sites in general. The fact that Box of Dread they're getting it out there. So more and more people are going to be experiencing the It VR experience, which is just going to get more attention to VR, which is going to get more studios interested in it. Like again, rising tides float all boats. So this is a really positive thing in my opinion. I was really happy that they did that. You and I had done it at a horror convention, but I'm going to give this to a friend who didn't have the chance to do it and say, here, download this, watch this on your phone. It's really fun.
Well, what else was in there?
Oh, I thought you were going to do
Oh, no, we can take turns.
Okay, this was like, you hear me rustling in the background.
Rustling?
Wow. So we have a see-through red blow-up red balloon sort of thing that says It on it, and it says You'll Float Too.
Yeah. And then the heavy object was a Losers Club pint glass.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, it has the It logo on it, and it is very, very cool. So I'm rustling through other stuff in the box too. And an It whistle.
Yep, so when you see clowns,
yes,
you can blow it.
And a little It pin, which my only complaint about this mic, this pin needs to be larger.
It's always about size with you.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. It needs to be larger.
Oh, boy.
Take that as you will. And we also have a Box of Dread Scream, Stephen King Rules Everything Around Me pin.
Scream, get the money, dollar bill. Yeah.
So Scream with a K for Stephen King.
Well, you know that. Do you know that reference? It's a Wu-Tang reference for Cream.
No, I didn't.
Cash rules everything around me. And not Andrew Cash. Like Cash Money.
Wow.
But oh my God, we could do a Cream with a K and have it be Cash rules everything around me.
So Andrew Cash does rule everything. Hi, Andrew. Does Andrew listen to the podcast?
I don't know. Probably not. Let's talk a bunch of crap about him and see if he says anything to us.
So the Box of Dread was completely It oriented or Stephen King oriented, which was really, really cool. And the pint glass is like, I have a Jason and a Scream glass, and like I'm adding slowly but surely to my pint glass collection.
Yeah, so it was a really good one this month. I really liked
absolutely.
it. For more information on the Box of Dread, you can go to boxofdread.com, on Facebook, Box of Dread, and Instagram and Twitter, Box of Dread. Now, Russell, you mentioned something when you were talking about horror movies and about a live experience.
Right. Warner Brothers, as I mentioned, was really, really pushing the movie It. And one of the things they did here in Hollywood, California, is they created a walkthrough immersive experience. Apparently, they don't want people calling it a traditional haunt in any way. And what they did is they built the Neibolt house from the film on a corner in the middle of Hollywood, and you could go and walk through it. And you met Georgie down on the doorsteps, and we were able to take a picture with Georgie and his red balloon. Which was awesome.
Which, again, is super smart marketing. Because
hell yeah.
With, like, the selfie culture now and, like, hashtagging and everything.
Yeah, social media tagging.
Everybody was doing that. So to give people time to do that, such a smart thing.
Yeah, and literally, and I ended up going through this experience twice, Mike, and both times the hosts literally they were so like, hey, we have 8 to 10 minutes for you guys to just take pictures and selfies.
Yeah.
And they timed us because they were, timing how many people go through the house and how fast they went through. And you're right. It was just smart marketing. Warner Brothers really outdid themselves. And to create a live event that you could walk through, and what this was it was the Neibolt house from the film, and it featured actual props from the movie. And Mike, when I went and saw the movie, I had to laugh because it was like, wait a minute, I know that clown. Because some of there's a room in the live experience and where they had numerous clowns, like statues, mannequins, all dressed as clowns. Those were in the movie. They're actual props from the film. And there's a sequence in the film where a child walks into a teenager walks into a room and he sees all of those things. And I actually, particularly one of them I thought was particularly creepy. I recognized as soon as it was on film. I was like, oh my God, like that's the one that I saw.
That's awesome.
And apparently they did have props from the movie sprinkled throughout the house. So Mike, did you enjoy this? What did you think?
Of course I did. I mean, if they don't want it being called a haunt, it's a haunt. It's a haunt in the middle of October that's free.
Yeah, I was talking to one of the managers, Scott, who we both know, and he said later that it's like they were hoping that people considered it an immersive experience, which immersive is the buzzword right now,
Yeah.
so of course they want people to consider that. But it did, Georgie led you through. Georgie interacted with you, which is kind of cool. He told you a couple of stories about you entered one room and it's very funny. The walkie-talkie that he uses in the movie, Georgie was talking about the walkie-talkie with us, and dude, that one room, you walked in and they had like old issues of Fangoria and Corazon and like sprinkled around, and Georgie was making reference to the magazines he and his friends used to read, and it was just so cool. And you had a couple of moments where I don't want to get into specifics for people who have not seen the movie, but there's a sequence involving doors that you have to choose to go through, and they recreated that sequence live, and you got to make that decision, so to speak. So yeah, it's like Warner Brothers really outdid themselves with this. There were some really good jump scares, great atmosphere. You really felt like you were walking through the Neibolt house from the movie. And I thought it was really, really smart of them to do this. They did it for several weeks leading up to the film's opening here in Hollywood. And I hope more studios do stuff like this.
Yeah, it was incredible because you're getting people that may not have gone to check it out just because there was this experience.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know. I got there the second time I went through. I got there earlier than the friend who had invited me to go along. So I stood on that corner, and it literally was the corner of Hollywood and Vine, and I kept hearing tourists like stop because it's obviously there's this dilapidated old house in the middle of Hollywood. So people were stopping and going, what is that? Wait, what? Like, what is, like, why does that look so weird? Like, it was such a non sequitur. It didn't look like anything surrounding it in Hollywood. So the street traffic, everybody wanted to know what it was about. Everybody wanted to stop and get a picture. And it's like I just think I am sure they gained so much attention from doing this.
Oh, definitely.
Because Hollywood obviously is a tourist destination, and they literally had foot traffic, I'm sure, from around the world walk by this thing and go, "Oh, wow, that's weird. What's that?" And it led them to the It movie. So nice job. Like I am so happy that they did this, and I want to see movies do more of this for big budget stuff.
Yeah.
So low budget independent people, I don't know how you would tackle something like this, but
Give the marketing department some more money.
yeah. So, and have them spend it on other stuff. So yeah, so I'm really glad that they were experimenting. I'm glad they did everything from VR to live experiences to the Box of Dread tie-in. Like, it has been a fun month playing around with all the It stuff.
Agreed.
If you are interested in the It VR experience, it is apparently on YouTube. So if you have access to VR and you can access VR from YouTube, it is up there and searchable. So go, have fun, investigate it.
So then we did something that wasn't creepy.
True.
We did chapter 4 of the Speakeasy Society's Kansas collection, which is called The Invitation.
Yep.
And I'm so glad it happened because I was missing this world because it's been a while since chapter 3 happened.
Yeah, it has. This may be my favorite chapter so far.
Yeah. Yeah. The interaction is like incredible.
Yeah, Speakeasy Society is a theater group here in the Los Angeles area that they seem to be developing a very unique style that pulls you into their world in a very intimate way, in the fact that you feel like you are part of the story. And they're doing something called the Kansas Collection, which is a serialized version of events that may have taken place in Oz after Dorothy left. So, and they're getting into the political aspects of if the Scarecrow King took over and formed a militia, and you have the mythology of a lost princess and what happened to Dorothy Gale, who, kind of wreaked havoc and then left. And, would they try to find her? And all of those, like, sort of almost political adult questions, they're playing those out in chapters that last anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes at a time. They've done 4 of them so far. And The Invitation is one of the lower key ones overall, but definitely one of the more intimate, and I found one of the most fascinating.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that because I feel the same way, because you don't have any of the major characters that you've learned about so far.
Yeah.
And even though you're not interacting with Dorothy or the Scarecrow King or anyone, it doesn't matter because it's just the interaction is so good and you're learning so much about that world.
Right. We don't want to give too much spoilery stuff because they are going to remount all 4 chapters in 2018.
Leading up to chapter 5.
Yep. And, but, we went back to visit this world, and we were immediately greeted by Lyman, who is a character who has greeted us at each and every one of the chapters and is a delight to talk with, but not the most reliable of folks. He usually answers a question with a question. He's one of those people. So, but energetic, fun, goofy. Every time I encounter him, I smile.
Yeah, same here.
So, and then we met, is it Private Styles?
Mm-hmm. Which I haven't seen him since chapter 1.
Yeah, exactly. And he sort of inducted us into chapter 1, I guess would be the way to put it. And he sort of did the same thing in this chapter. And here's the other thing that I love about Speakeasy. This chapter was also designed in a way that if you had not encountered any characters, if you hadn't been to any of the chapters, Styles sort of gave you the intro. And he checked in with you because he asked you, and I was like, hey, they captured Dorothy. Were you there when that happened? And I'm sure, because we both attended chapter 3 where we witnessed that happen. Mm-hmm. So I have a feeling if people said no, he could give the opportunity of, hey, like, this is what happened.
Right.
And then we met, as Mike just mentioned, we met 2 new characters. And it's interesting because I wondered how or if they were going to incorporate these characters. And we met I mainly hung out with TikTok, and you have visited someone else.
That's right, Russell. I did.
I was trying to throw it to you to say his name.
Yeah, I met with Jack.
We were given an explanation as to why we were there, because apparently things are going well in Oz, and this is all information which, by the way, you will get before you enter this chapter when it's restaged. The militia is no longer needed, and all of the recruits who have been loyal to the Scarecrow King are being reassigned to community service type roles, and we were going to help out 2 prisoners, actually, who were doing some menial tasks in preparation for a major event coming up in Oz. That was the setup. So Mike and I walked into a different room, and we met 2 characters, Jack and Tick, and almost immediately we learned what the task was that they were doing, and which sets up something which will happen, I'm sure, in a future chapter. Which
is going to be amazing, I think.
I can't wait. But they were preparing for something, a social event later in Oz. And we were asked to help them. But what happened is Mike and I got pulled to opposite sides of the room. Jack pulled you to one side, Tick pulled me to the other side. And we had private conversations. And in those conversations, you know, I want to hear... Basically, I was sort of asked where my loyalties really rested, and I was asked if, sort of like, are you still willing to stand up for what you believe in? And it's funny, Mike, when I got pulled aside by Tick, who was played by, I hope I am pronouncing this right, Nikhil Pai, and Jack, who you spoke with, was played by Michael Bates. And I think both of these actors were just like spot on. They were so engaging. But I got to admit, I was, as Tick was talking to me about loyalties and, you know, what's coming, and I kept wanting to hear if you were getting the same thing.
Right. I don't think we were.
So, you know, because I wanted to know if, like, are these guys on the same side? Do these guys see everything the same way?
Right.
Because they're in the same position. They're both prisoners. So, yeah. Do you can you offer anything about your conversation?
I don't think they're the same story. Like
that's all you're going to give me?
Yeah. Right now, yeah.
Damn you. But
well, the cool thing is, you know, I think because of the way this is done, we can probably go back once they do chapter 4 again and try to get the other person.
That will be interesting. I would want to do that because, like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. And it was one of those situations, Mike, where, you know, I got asked a question and I gave him a slightly incorrect answer and he called me on it. He was like, no, that's not the right answer. He's like, and he was like, well, it's kind of the right, like, well, and so he didn't trust me. Even though I knew the answer to the question, he didn't trust me. And so I had to, like, on the spot, I came up, well, yeah, you're right. That's not good. But here's the reason why I didn't give you the correct answer. And I made up an excuse as to why I didn't say the right thing. And he was like, okay, all right, that makes sense. And I kind of, like, earned his trust again. And it's just like, for him to have those improv skills and just to put them in play instantly engaged me so much more.
Yeah, and I had something very, very similar because it's been a while since...
Yeah, it's been a while since the last chapter.
Yeah, and something like that happened to me, and another sort of improv thing happened. I don't want to say exactly because we promised to keep it a secret.
Okay.
But yeah, and it was just like, oh, this is why I love this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a really great moment. And then I think both of us were given pieces of information that will absolutely affect later chapters. So that's really cool. They've planted a seed which we can choose what to do with that piece of information if we return to the future chapters, which, hell yeah.
And the good thing about this is, well, it's not good, but it's good for them. And I guess good for us, but it's just horrible because... I want it now.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know, it's like, you know, when you watch a TV show and something happens and you have to wait till next week and it's like,
or next year.
Yeah.
These days.
But yeah, like the way this left off, like there's so many threads that can be tied together now.
Yeah, and there's something really exciting building for the future chapters. Yeah, that's what I was left with. So if you would like to learn more information about the Speakeasy Society and their upcoming shows, check them out at speakeasysociety.com. Look them up on Facebook at the Speakeasy Soc, Speakeasy SOC on Facebook, on Instagram, the Speakeasy Soc, and on Twitter, the Speakeasy Soc. Now, Mike, after that immersive experience, we had another one.
Yeah, that same night, literally.
Yes, we
like
drove
right after another.
drove across town and went into another one. We went to something. It was an exhibition by the Wolseley Institute. Now, this is something which has cropped up on Instagram. They don't have a lot of posts. Going into this, didn't know quite exactly who was behind it. We do know that they are veterans of the immersive scene here in Los Angeles. And it was hosted at Zombie Joe's Underground Theater. So it was a space that we were familiar with.
And the show was called Betwixt.
Yes. Now, betwixt, there's different variations of the definition of betwixt, but it basically means between two things. So, and I think that's a very fitting description for the show.
Oh, definitely.
Because it's an exploration of being between destinations, I think would be the way I put it.
Yeah, and I loved everything about this show. You know, like, don't smile at me like that. That's weird. Like,
no, I'm just happy that you liked it.
But everything from the first person that you meet that takes you into the show.
He was an energetic little guy, wasn't he?
There's so much, and there's so much information like that he gives you. And it's almost to the point where there was so much, like, I forget everything.
Yeah, this show opened with you meeting someone, literally walking up and basically pulling you away toward the show as you were waiting with the people standing in line, and he downloads a ton of information about who he is, what the show is, what the exhibition means, what your duty is, and it's rapid fire. And I found myself actually more confused when he left me than before the show. So I entered the show in this state of like, I don't know what I'm getting into at all, which is wonderful because the whole show continues that weird, where am I? What does this mean?
Right. What is happening?
Yeah. And so, he sets this up and supposedly you are, they called me professor, and supposedly you're here to do a little research through the Wolseley Institute's exhibition.
Before we go into this is one of those shows that I feel really needs to be extended, and I really, really hope it does, because it's that good. We don't know for sure if they are, but I think we should tread carefully with spoilers.
I agree, and I know for a fact because I spoke afterwards with some of the people working, and I think they are going to try to extend it.
Good.
Which is a good thing, because I think more people should see this show. This is really experimental stuff. If you're looking for concrete, linear story, this is not what you're looking for. The title Betwixt fits the whole show. And Mike, for me, what this whole show was, in almost every sequence, you are encountering someone who is stuck or don't know where they're going. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
And sometimes you can affect that, and sometimes you can't. And I think that's where the emotion comes from, is who can you help and who can't you help? And by about midway through the show, I walked into a room and I realized that I was the one who might need help.
I'm not going to make the joke on that.
Feel free. Because I was becoming confused. There's life is a journey, not a destination. I mean, there's variations of that quote, all over the literature. It's like, you've heard that a million different ways. And I think that's what this whole show is like, where are you going? And what will it take to get there? And what do you carry with you? And what do you leave behind? who do you carry with you and who do you leave behind? I think those are things that are all explored in a very somewhat surreal context. And I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was very well done. I thought it was in places very, very moving.
Yeah, and a lot of times in shows like this, for me personally, I'll go through and it's like, okay, like I understand this, but it doesn't make sense to the story. Everything made sense in this story to me because, you know, it's like you're between two things, you know, betwixt, and it just, everything flowed so well. And if it's the room that I think you're talking about, it kind of reminded me of a certain scene in Beetlejuice. And
you know what I thought?
What?
Brazil.
Oh, okay. But it's at that point, that's when everything like everything clicked.
Oh yeah, for me too.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. The same thing. So
and it's really strange too, because for the not counting the first scene you have getting led into it by the guy we were talking about,
mm-hmm.
but the first actual scene inside and the last scene, like it was weird because I felt so loved, even though that first scene was almost an interrogation of sorts.
Well, yeah, because they don't know if you're an intruder or not.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was weird. Like it just felt like this, like love from these creatures. You know, like it's hard to explain. And then the ending scene, of course, it's just, you know, it's a beautiful moment, you know, that you share. So
yeah, absolutely. You know, and also there's a scene in between those two scenes we just referred to where I had a really emotional moment where I felt cared for.
Right. I know what scene you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a loving, and again, I think it was a very, very wise choice that the actor chose to react to me because of what I walked into the room with. I obviously reacted to something in the scene, and you know, when he noticed what I reacted to, I reacted to something in the room. He actually picked it up and he actually brought it to me, and we had you're not supposed to speak during the show, so this was all nonverbal for me, you know, and I, you know, he put something in my hand and I held it, and I'm like, you know, he stop it. Would you stop it? And you know, he let me ponder something, and then, you know, it just like, so I felt very involved and very cared for. Wow, that all sounded very obtuse, didn't it? So, but you're right. It goes back to what you're saying, is I felt very cared for. And I think really just it goes back to, if life is a journey, who and what do you hold close?
Yeah.
I thought this was a beautiful show. I want to see this extend, and I want to see what they do next.
Yeah. As soon as this show got out, I hit up maybe like 5 or 6 people and was like, have you gotten tickets yet? Like, they're like, no. It's like, you need to make sure you follow them to make sure that, because you need to see this.
Yeah.
Like this is one that kind of like, even though it's sold out, it's kind of under the radar because it's all through Instagram and word of mouth.
Right.
So people need to know, and people need to see this because it is really good.
Yeah. If you would like more information on Betwixt, check them out on Instagram at the Wolseley Institute. Wolseley is spelled Wolseley Institute.
Yep. It is spelled that way. Why are you staring at me like that? It's weird.
So, because I want you to take us into the next thing, Mike.
Oh, this show. God. Man, okay. So the next show we went to was... What? No, it's only because I'm thinking of like what we're about to talk about, and it's just like...
Oh, I know.
It's like, it's one of those things where you just want to be like, God damn it, but you do it so well, so I guess I'll take it, kind of thing. We're talking about Stars in the Night, and that's put on by the Stephanie Feury Studios. And you may recognize that name from Firelight or Fire and Light. which Fire and Light happened at Fringe, and Firelight happened a couple times throughout the year, last December and then this past March. And it was a very, very emotional thing about relationships. This is no different, which is why I did the whole at the beginning of it.
I got to admit, is like, Mike, you know, it's funny I consider you a very good friend. So when we go through something and I know that we're both going to react to different aspects of it, during the first scene, I started to feel that of like, I think I might know how Mike is reacting to this. And I'm reacting too, but I'm reacting from a different place. And then sure enough, you kind of like slapped me on the shoulder at one point just to make the point of like how that it was like, yeah, it was stuff you could relate to.
Oh, that's not all I did. I mouthed a certain 4-letter word knowing where this was going.
Yep. That was one of those like, really? Do we have to deal with this tonight? So yeah. And it was funny because I didn't really get that until the final sequence was when it really hit me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that final sequence is amazing. But yes, okay. So Stars in the Night is a series of scenes. And some people I have used called it a vignette show. Somebody made a reference to that online somewhere. And yeah, Mike, how would you describe the connections here?
I was talking to Noah from No Proscenium, who has an awesome podcast. Go check it out. And he said it the best that I could never, I just need to copy him at this point. But he said, it's like, yeah, it was like a bunch of short stories ending with a novella.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's perfect. So
right.
Trademark Noah Nelson, 2017. So while there weren't really connections for the story, there was a certain connection of a theme throughout.
Absolutely. Thematically, this thing is so cohesive, and there are touches that link the sequences. You meet several different characters in a couple of different locations. One of them you literally follow around the streets of Hollywood, and you hear snippets of him remembering stuff about his life and about a particular woman who affected him heavily. And it seems like every doorway, every building brings up a memory for him. Mm-hmm. And from there, you move on to a couple of other characters. And thematically, I thought it was really nice that one of those characters talks about the ocean. And yet, almost an hour later, we had another character talk about the ocean in a very different aspect. One person was talking about what it gave them every day, and the other person was referring to what it could possibly represent that they are missing out on. And things like that are the grace notes to this production that when they happen so subtly that if you're not paying attention, you could miss them, but the connections are there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned following this one person around, and I want to mention the use of space without spoiling the show, because there are surprises based on that, which I was very surprised at, the different uses of spaces and getting from one space to another.
Right.
And that made this that much cooler to me, because it felt like you're almost time traveling in a way, and witnessing certain events in certain places, and it had that much more of an impact.
Yeah, I think as you're moving from spot to spot and encountering these different characters, each of whom seems to be tied to a job or a task or tied to someone else. I think this is one of those things where the intimacy of what you witness, and as far as space goes, you end up in a situation where you are sharing a very small space with multiple performers. And that final sequence, the novella that Noah referred to, the intimacy of that sequence was almost overwhelming. Partially because of I think the I'm going to say bravery of that cast, because holy crap, they did not let anything not show.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got every single glance, every single look that was. Well, I'm actually fumbling here. I completely believed I was watching years of knowledge and a relationship. I think that's it. That's the compliment I can give. Is I did not believe that these were performers. I didn't believe that these were characters. I believed that I had entered the home of a married couple.
And you were a fly on the wall.
Yeah, exactly. And like what we witnessed was engaging and harrowing and disturbing and quite beautiful at times. And
I think that's the key. At least it is for me. If I was watching that on a stage, I wouldn't have felt as connected.
No, not at all.
Because of where we were and the proximity and the fact that everything was so natural and so fluid. Like, it wasn't a show.
Yeah, you were in someone's home, as you said, a fly on the wall. This entire cast, I think, needs to be commended in the fact that I think all of the performances held that sort of, I was about to say rawness, but that is not the right word. There's a nakedness to these performances. There's an authenticity, mm-hmm. which a proscenium show would not lend itself to, as you said.
Right.
This is special stuff.
Like even the guy checking us in, walking down the streets. Like, yeah. Those were actual stories from his past, it felt like.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Like it never felt like a tour guide. Like, and here's where it reminds me of this. It was like everything was just so natural.
Right. And the fact that he needed to start his evening with a drink.
Right.
It's like you knew that he was not starting in the greatest of places just by the way he sat down, the way he talked to us when we first met, the way he had to finish his drink before he could deal with us. Like, that was a sign of something to come.
I just took it as he didn't want to waste money. Better finish the drink.
It was more than that. So, yeah, Stars in the Night is an experimental piece, I would think, because of... It's like, again, I said this about an earlier piece. If you're looking for a linear, clear story, this is not your cup of tea. What this is glimpses into people's lives. Fly on the wall is probably the best phrase. You step into a space and you encounter and learn something very intimate about someone. There are a couple of times, there's a character early on where the idea of what would make you happy in your own life comes up. And the struggle that you witness is so touching, and it can't not affect you. It can't not make you question where you stand on that subject matter. And when you get to the very end sequence, Mike, my thing about that sequence where, one character leads you into the situation and then sort of abandons you and you don't understand why until the very last moments of the show. It's, the idea of where do you risk? Where do you open up? What do you share with people? And you're watching people risk a lot. And it makes you wonder, how much am I risking? And how much am I playing full out? And where am I not playing full out? And for a theater piece to do that, that's pretty high praise.
Oh, definitely. Sometimes I wish, and this is going to sound super negative, but I mean it as like the highest compliment. Like, no, I know.
Yeah.
But like a show like this, sometimes I wish I didn't have to see. And I mean that in the best way because, all of us have, like, in our past have had like relationships, and so when you see a show like this, and you flash back, it's just like, oh man, why am I here? And it's like, not only like, why am I here at the show, but like, why am I not with, a certain person trying to like make things better, or, someone in your past that you want to apologize to, or, even current relationships, things like that. It's like, it makes you think of all of that. And so you know, like sometimes it just becomes too much, and it's like, I wish there was a safe word for emotionals, you know, but like I said, like this is an amazing show and I'm glad I went, but at the same time, it's like, oh, I didn't want to cry tonight.
Yeah, there were a couple moments that hurt. And again, I think that's a compliment. There are a couple moments that were really painful because I related to them too closely.
Mm-hmm. Same with me.
And again, hey, that's pretty damn high praise.
It really is. You know, it sounds negative, but no, it is. Like for the writing and the acting to bring that out of people, it's, you know, it's such a compliment.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If you would like to learn more information about the emotionally draining, gut-wrenching, and yet somehow thrilling, harrowing, moving...
and make you question all of your relationships, past, present, and future.
All your actions, every decision you've made in your entire life. If you're interested in that kind of theater, check out sfstheater.com. And you can go to the Facebook page at SFS Theater. You can go to Instagram at SFS Theater LA, and on Twitter, SFS_theater. And I should mention that theater in all of these cases is spelled with the TRE ending for the word theater.
And Russell, you did something else. You visited one of our favorite streets.
Yes, absolutely. There's a little area on Magnolia in Burbank, California. Some people call it Horror Row. And there's like horror-related bookstores, costume shops, comic memorabilia shops, movie memorabilia shops. There's all kinds of things in one area. And one of our favorite places is the Bearded Lady Mystic Museum, which has changed locations. They are a store that has... they have sort of interesting books and artwork available to purchase. They also have antiques, very unique items, old medical equipment, old artwork, old posters. They have a little bit of everything. They've changed location recently, and the Bearded Lady Mystic Museum has art shows every now and then. Currently, they are running a show called Slashback Video. And it's also at the same time, there is a art display of old Ben Cooper Halloween costumes, which for those of you who know Ben Cooper Halloween costumes, they're sort of the plastic mask with the rubber band and the like pre-printed apron kind of drape thing that you would buy when you were a kid. And it was always exciting, you know, to go and purchase these store-made costumes sometimes when I was a kid. Sometimes I would make my own costumes as a kid, and sometimes Mom, you know, we would splurge and I would go get a store-bought costume. You know, Ben Cooper, you've seen Ben Cooper costumes, trust me. So they're doing an art show, which is a lot of old Ben Cooper costumes in their original packaging. And Mike, like, this was a trip down memory lane because they did, like, there's a Battlestar Galactica costume on display, the Cylon mask, which is so cool. And they have Star Wars figures and the just numerous different, they have a lot of Disney character masks.
Uh-oh.
And yeah, a couple of them looking a little mischievous, you know, because it's Halloween costumes, right? So, yeah, it was really fun to browse the Ben Cooper, and they have artwork inspired by Ben Cooper costumes. They have the Ben Cooper costumes themselves on display. It's just fascinating. Really will make you nostalgic for when you were a kid and you loved dressing up for Halloween. And the other half of the room is something called Slashback Video, which Ryan Turek, who works with Blumhouse, had a major hand in bringing this together. And it is... Mike, it's an 80s video store.
Nice.
They like recreate 2 aisles of the horror section out of an 80s video store. And dude, I worked in a video store in the mid 80s. And I remembered almost every single movie and cover. And they have stuff that has never been released on DVD. They have VHS boxes, some beta boxes. For those of you who don't know what that is, look it up. Google it. But they have lots of VHS boxes and some beta boxes of horror films that I guarantee you, Mike, you'll see titles like, wow, I completely forgot that even existed. Totally unique boxes, and they also have artwork on display inspired by the 80 video covers, and some of those are completely unique. Some of them are little sculptures made to represent VHS boxes themselves. Utterly fascinating. It's at the Bearded Lady Mystic Museum. You go into the shop, and then you have to pay an additional $10. And Mike, I don't know if you can. This is what they give you. It's like I'm holding up to Mike. They actually give you, back when video stores were more of a thing, you had membership cards, and they actually give you a membership card.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I'm showing Mike. On the back it says "Be kind, rewind, or else." Which, for those of you who remember the VHS days of video stores, "Be kind, rewind" is a phrase you will recognize. So that's really, really fun. If you're in the California area, highly recommend. Just the artwork, the nostalgia factor is just off the charts. It's so much fun. For more information on Facebook, look up the Mystic Museum, and on Instagram also you can look up the Mystic Museum. Also, you can look up Bearded Lady Vintage, and that has more of the objects and stuff from the Bearded Lady store that you can look at, and it's really, really fun, and it'll bring back a lot of nostalgia, I think, for collectors and fans of just old creepy stuff.
So Russell, one of the first escape rooms that we really, really got excited about was the basement.
Yes.
We went probably within the first couple of weeks it was open.
Yeah, I believe so.
Like years and years ago. And every time they have a new room, we always get excited and we go and it's like, oh my God, they just keep upping the ante and it's so good. And they have another new room. Mm-hmm. And we just did it, and it's called the Elevator Shaft.
Yes.
And this actually replaces the boiler room, which I know that was one of your favorite rooms ever, right?
Yeah, the boiler room was one of my all-time favorites.
And so this is the new chapter 2, because the boiler room was chapter 2 in the Edward Tandy saga, with the basement being chapter 1 and the study being chapter 3. So now we have the elevator shaft. And I mean, with the boiler room being one of your favorites, what do you think about this one?
I thought this was wonderful. I had an absolute blast because it's almost unfair for me to rave about this because it touches a very personal fear and thing that I have ickiness around. And it's I thought this was a lot of fun. The production design is amazing. This can fit. This is a little bit larger. The boiler room could only fit 4 people in. This is a 6-person room. We did it with 5, and that seemed plenty. That seems. Yeah. I think 4 or 5 would be perfect. 6 is certainly doable. There's so many moving parts in this thing, and to some degree, I mean literally moving. This is one of the most tech-heavy escape rooms I think I've seen ever, maybe. And I don't mean as a patron you're involved in the tech, or the tech comes in the solving of the puzzles. I mean just what's going on in the environment, Mike.
Oh yeah.
Like they create a world. Mm-hmm. You step into that elevator shaft and you have a problem in front of you and you have to solve the problem in 45 minutes or less. And it gets intense. It's
not just one problem, though. It's many problems.
Yes, there are several problems. But I think that's why I love this so much, is the intensity level overall. And plus, like I said, there's a couple things that hit personal fears that I have. What did you think?
I loved it. It was so much fun. This is a room where, I don't think this would be a spoiler, but it's so high tech that you don't have things that you will normally see in escape rooms. Like you won't have number locks, or you won't have to find, pieces of a puzzle that like add up to this code which opens this lock kind of thing.
No.
There are key locks, like stuff like that, but as far but I think there was only one. No, there was 2, maybe.
There was 2.
But every other solution it's all technology based.
Oh, well, technology, and it's an environment based.
Yeah.
Which I think, obviously, that was their intention. Was they wanted to create an escape room where everything made sense based on the environment you are in, and they completely knocked it out of the park. Mm-hmm. Because everything, when you get inside the room and you realize where you are and you realize what's going on, all of the puzzles, the tricks, the traps, the things that you have to find are inherent to the environment and the storyline. Mm-hmm. It makes logical sense. You're told that somebody how do you put it? This is all explained literally on the trailer for it that they released. Somebody has left you information, and you're using that information. So that, I think that's one of the high compliments we can give this room, is it's all environmentally based. It's not, oh, look, you have to solve a puzzle for some reason. It's like you have to solve something, and there's a reason it's a code, or there's a reason it's tricky, and there's a reason things are hidden from you. But yeah, that, and they up the tension factor in this one for sure.
And we can't tell you why, because that would ruin everything.
Oh yeah, there are, off the top of my head, I can think of 3 very specific things that happened in this escape room that when it unfolded, I just went like, I can't really. I just had this moment like, what? There's more? They're adding more? I just like, yeah, absolutely.
It's one thing after another.
Yeah, it is. It's a very, and that's what I meant by heightened tension. Is they keep making things more intense by changing the environment, and that's really, I think, all I want to say about that. But I thoroughly enjoyed this room. I recommend it to everyone who likes escape rooms. Yeah, can't wait to get some of my friends over there and have them react to this.
And as of this recording, we had set the record for escaping.
Which I want to say something about that, Mike.
Of course.
None of us were trying to set a record.
No, not at all.
None of us were trying to go fast. None of us were trying to rush through this. The reason we set the record, our team in particular, I think is because we all got caught up in the tension that kept heightening. And so we were just moving faster and faster and faster and faster because of the environment that we were in.
Well, I think it was also the teamwork.
Oh, that's true. We were a really good team.
Because when you know how everyone has those days where everything clicks? Yeah. Like today was one of those days. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, here's this. Oh, here's that. Oh, I know what to do here.
Right.
Like that kind of thing. And everything just worked and flowed really well. Right.
And it was one of those days, like something didn't click with me, but you knew what to do.
Right.
And there were, on our, we should shout out to Melissa and Jake and Dawson. So who are the other members of our team. Yep. And each one of us, I think, had a moment, where we found something, or, Jake was the first person to find something that was hidden, and, and Melissa found a clue, and then Dawson was there at the end. He was the one coordinating. I can't say when he was coordinating, but, we're like, yeah, the teamwork, and believe me, teamwork is important in this room.
Oh, definitely.
So, but it's funny because we were not intending to go fast. And I was shocked.
Well, we never do.
Well, yeah.
We never go into in a room being like, we're going to set the record.
No, because that's not point. There's no point in doing a room that way, in my humble opinion, because it takes the fun out of the room if you're trying to do that. But I just, when we walked out and we were told that we had set the record and like substantially beat the other record, I think it's because we were having so much fun and we were so caught up in the intense environment that we were just like, go, 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 go. I had a blast at this thing.
Yeah. But again, we want to say to Jeff and to Team Horror Buzz, suck it.
I was going to wish them luck.
Oh, that's wish
that's
you
your
luck.
Form of wishing
them
luck.
No, that's wish you luck in Spanish.
Oh, okay. Suck it. Okay. Yeah. So, all right. Yeah. So let's see what they got.
Yeah. And they're doing it today, so it's
Yeah,
this might be like already out of date by the time it goes out.
I know,
Who
but
knows?
that's why we're teasing, is because they are actually they're doing it later this afternoon. We know for a fact. Yeah, this was so much fun. If you enjoy escape rooms, the elevator shaft at the basement is a welcome addition to the LA scene for escape rooms. That is for sure. Highly recommend it.
Agreed. And for more information on the basement and all of their rooms, go to thebasementla.com. On Facebook, The Basement Escape Room. On Instagram, The Basement LA. And on Twitter, Basement LA. So haunt season's here. Universal opens, Six Flags opens.
Knott's is about to open.
Yeah, all of these things are opening. And one of the haunts I was looking forward to this year was Creep. Creep tickets just went on sale this past weekend as well.
And they're partnering with the Amazon series Lore based on the podcast, which is really, really popular. So if you are a fan of Lore and are looking forward to the upcoming TV show, this should be something that definitely speak to you.
Oh my God, can you imagine a haunt based on our podcast? It's just two people talking and getting annoyed with one another.
Making weird jokes to each other.
Making everything a sexual pun.
So, yeah, that would be your room.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, yeah. So looking forward to that. And also, Wicked Lit tickets are on sale. We should mention that because that sells out every year. As a matter of fact, I know for a fact, Mike, that Wicked Lit already has nights sold out. Because I had some friends who were going and told me, like, yeah, we wanted to go on this night and it's already sold out.
Nice.
So definitely check them out.
Yeah, and then finally, I just want to give a shout out to Blaine, who is Adams Blaine on Instagram, for a very nice Instagram post about the podcast.
That was very
you.
nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, I love when surprises like that happen.
Yeah, it was just like it's always kind of fun when you like, oh wait, so, like someone other than our close friends actually listened to this.
So thank you so much for spreading the love and telling your friends about us and stuff. That means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for that.
And that's everything for now.
Except for one thing. So it's a certain day that I made something and I wanted to share it with you.
Fine.
So this is going to take a moment, but you know that in my home I have some souvenirs. And you should probably go look at the wheelchair and straitjacket in my room, in my living. No, wait, not in my room, in my living room, in my living room, in my living room. Okay, so Mike, I just want to wish you a happy birthday.
Thanks.
Oops, and I just blew out 2 of the candles. So
Thanks.
I made you a really, really crooked chocolate tombstone cake.
Thank you.
And I actually, 2 candles went out as yeah, there you go. Relight the candles. So Mike just blew out the candles on his cake. So I just want to say happy birthday to a really good friend of mine. And there's some presents that were hidden underneath the straitjacket on the wheelchair. So
This isn't immersive. We shouldn't be talking about this.
I know, but I just wanted to say happy birthday, friend.
Thanks.
I really appreciate having you as a friend, et cetera, et cetera. So insert lots of feels here. I have to stop this because Mike is getting annoyed. All right. So I think that covers everything, right?
Yes.
Thanks for listening.
Yep. If you want to find out more info on us, go to myhauntlife.com. You can check out the haunt calendar, which is filling up very nicely at myhauntlife.com/calendar. You can send us a text or a voicemail at 515-HAUNT-LA. You can reach out to Russell and I or email us at russell@myhauntlife.com with 2 S's and 2 L's or mike@myhauntlife.com. Thanks again. And we'll probably, if you see us out at haunts this year, come say hi, say hello. And yeah, we are looking forward to everything that's coming because haunts are starting and it's amazing.
And it's going to be a really busy season.
Yep.
Let us know what you guys go and do and love.
And we will catch you next time. I'm Mike.
And I'm Russell.
Thanks for listening.
See ya. This seems to be slipping down. Do you want me to adjust it up? Never mind.